Okay, for this video I'll show you what I've learned about getting some flexibility around our labels in ArcGIS Pro. Things have changed a lot from ArcMap, and so as you're already aware, we can label things in ArcMap, but these labels aren't very flexible. It's going to be very hard to do something nice with these labels, especially for the islands of Hawaii. Also, we might like to have a curved label for the Pacific Ocean and for Hawaiian Islands, and the regular labeling, there's just no way to do it. So what I'll show you now is how to convert labels to annotation. You do have to have labels turned on to be able to do this. Okay, this brings up convert labels to annotation transform. We do want to make sure single layer is selected instead of all layers in map. There's the layer that we're doing. Now this requires a geodatabase. So a geodatabase, file geodatabase is one we want to use. This is an Esri geodatabase, especially designed by them. It is high performance. It is not a not an enterprise level relational database, but it is a relational database. Works out well for cities that need to put a bunch of GIS data together and have them linked. And anyway, the annotation suffix, I'm going to go ahead and put island in here and call this group island, and I'll show you why in a little bit. And then I'm going to go ahead and run this, and what you will see it creates, it doesn't look like it really did anything, but if we turn off our labels, if we turn on our labels and counties, you'll see that there's now an extra set of labels there. So these are inside this group. Okay, and it gets a little complicated, but basically there's our group, okay, and there's our actual counties. So this is basically, you can think of it as a polyline layer that has text on top of it and a bunch of other functionality. Now we can go ahead and modify this like we have other data sets. Oops. You select there. And do things like we can select these guys and then we can move them. I didn't actually want to move Hawaii now I think about it. So let's go ahead and move Maui. So now I can move these labels to somewhere where they're going to look much better. Okay, so that's the basic idea. And I think I'll actually move them down below it. And you can play with it quite a bit. Okay, so this is pretty cool. However, one of the things you may go hunting for and not find are things like the font characteristics that you'd want to have for these. To get to those, we need to go to the attribute table and notice that the attribute table in annotations has the font characteristics in it. In other words, there's the font name, there's the font style, there's the font size. So if we want to change the size of the font for the island of Hawaii, we do it here in the attribute table. A little different from what we've done in the past. So there's Maui, and I can go ahead and change any of these. Now notice that it also has a whole bunch of different font characteristics, okay, that we can get to. So basically what they've done is instead of providing us with a nice graphical user interface, they put it inside the attribute table. At least we can change it, and it does work. More importantly, because this is effectively a polyline layer, we can also create new features. And here is our class A1. And so if we want to lay down one for Hawaiian Islands, okay, and I want to do that with a curve, and this is pretty important. So you can do it with a straight line. Okay, and there's one with a straight line. You can do one with a slanted line, or you can do it with curves, which is the really cool part. Now, don't put down a whole bunch of points because these curves will get a little bit crazy. All right, and you may have noticed that down here we've actually got features being added, and these are the two I was playing with, and I'm just going to go ahead and delete those because they're not really what I want. Okay, but you can now add and delete just as we would add and delete things that were spatial data, and now I've got my Hawaiian Islands. Yay! And like with other spatial layers, we can go ahead and modify this, and I can change these vertices to change where I want this laid out. And there's our curved text. Okay. And of course now we can add and delete features to this. We can change things. The one thing that we can't change is the font itself. So what I found, and I'm going to go ahead and make sure you save regularly. Okay, and also make sure you save that database in your lab folder because that's got to go with everything else. And clear my selection. Okay, I'll go back and fix these a little bit later. But one of the things I want to do is I want to put Pacific Ocean down here, but I want to use a different font color. And notice the attribute table doesn't have font color in it. I don't know why. That would be really handy to have. But you also may notice that if we go in here and we go to symbology, we get a very different dialog. We don't get the traditional change of symbology. And if we go here, we can go ahead and change the color, but it changes for all of the labels. Okay, and then we go here, and this will change the label that's being used to draw these, which is great, as long as we want them all to be the same. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and Control Z out of that because, oh, that looks kind of cool, but I'll stay with those. So that changed the whole layer, but if I want to have Pacific Ocean be different color, that's a problem. Now, if you go online, they have instructions for how to create an annotation layer inside a geodatabase, but it was much harder than just going here, saying that I want to label my islands, and then convert labels to annotation. And now you do need to put it in the same output geodatabase. I don't know why, but that was important because if I didn't do that, it simply replaced the one that I had over here in the table of contents. It's like it only allows you to have one at a time. And then I'm going to call this Ocean and group Ocean. And now, yep, I am using the counties. Okay, but this was basically a cheap way of getting a new group up here with an attribute table that has a bunch of things in it I don't actually want. Okay, that's okay. I can just go in and delete these rows. Okay, because I don't really want these. Okay, and I'm not going to delete all of them because that can be dangerous. But what I can do is now I can create my, whoops, in here, create my Pacific Ocean feature, do it curved, go ahead and draw it down here, okay, and now I can go ahead and delete Hawaii, change my font size to be nice and big, okay, and now I can go to symbology, change the color, and there we go. And now I'm getting to where I want to be with Hawaiian Islands, labels next to my islands, and then the Pacific Ocean. Okay, to wrap up, what I've done is gone ahead and just changed the font size to all be 16. Also, of course, I went and replaced the county names with the actual names of each of the individual islands. And again, did that just by creating new features, which is really handy, and then change them in the attribute table. For this, to be able to stack the label, I found out that the annotation layer doesn't support stacking or wrapping of text. That was okay. I just went ahead and made it into two separate labels, broke them apart, and I think I'm pretty well good to go. So have fun.